All right, let's just dive right in. We're going to explore some of the biggest, toughest questions we all ask at some point in our lives. You know the ones. Why is there so much suffering in the world? Why do horrible things happen to good, innocent people, even children? And if this whole life thing is some kind of test, did any of us actually, sign up for it? We're going to look for answers by breaking down some fascinating insights from Islamic theological sources.
And this question right here, it really gets to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? It feels like a contradiction. If the world was made for us, why does it so often feel like it's working against us? This whole problem of evil and injustice is something people have wrestled with forever, and it's the perfect place for us to start.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the question of suffering itself. Then, we'll dive into an amazing story that offers a totally different perspective. After that, we'll talk about the purpose behind all this hardship and this idea of life as a kind of sacred trust. And that's going to lead us to that massive question: did we actually choose this test? And finally, we'll pull it all together to see the bigger picture.
Okay, part 1. The question of suffering. Now, the very first step, according to these sources, is all about humility. It's about admitting that our human point of view is, well, pretty limited.
And I think this is such an honest place to start. Before we can even try to understand divine justice, we have to admit that, hey, we don't have all the facts, not even close. We don't get the secrets of the universe, and we don't even fully understand our own minds. The sources even point out that the angels themselves questioned God's plan at first because their knowledge was limited, which just goes to show you that this is a fundamental part of being a creation.
All right, let's move on to a story that really illustrates this idea in a powerful way. This is the Quranic story of the prophet Moses, or Musa, and this really mysterious figure named Khidr, who has this special kind of God-given knowledge. So the story kicks off from a place we can all relate to. Prophet Musa is just deeply troubled by all the pain and suffering he sees in the world, especially when it happens to innocent people. He needs to understand the why behind it all. So he seeks out Khidr, this man who has knowledge directly from God, hoping he can get some answers.
So they start their journey, and right away, Khidr does something that seems completely nuts. He finds a boat that belongs to some poor fishermen and just damages it. Now, from Musa's perspective, and ours, this is a totally senseless, cruel thing to do to people who have next to nothing. So of course Musa speaks up. I mean, who wouldn't?
And then, it gets so much worse. They meet a young boy, and Khidr kills him. Just like that. Musa's absolutely horrified. I mean, this isn't just a damaged boat anymore. This is the murder of an innocent child. From any human point of view, this is a monstrous, evil act. It's the very definition of the kind of injustice we all struggle with.
The third event is less violent, but it's just as confusing. They get to a town where the people are incredibly rude. They won't even give them food or water. And yet, Khidr sees a wall that's about to fall down and just starts repairing it for free. Musa is baffled. Why would you help people who are so awful to you? It makes zero sense.
And at this point, Khidr basically says, okay, you couldn't handle it. You couldn't be patient. But before they part ways, he promises to explain everything, to reveal the hidden wisdom behind all these seemingly terrible actions.
And here it is, the big reveal. Turns out the boat was damaged to save it. A tyrannical king was coming to seize every single good boat by force, so a little damage made sure it was overlooked. That young boy? God knew he would grow up to become a tyrant himself and bring unbearable pain to his devout parents. And the wall? It was hiding a treasure, left by a good man for his 2 orphaned children. All of a sudden, these actions that looked so cruel and random were actually acts of profound, hidden mercy.
So, if we take that powerful lesson from the story and apply it more broadly, what are the purposes of hardship? How do we find meaning in suffering that often feels completely and utterly meaningless?
Well, the sources lay out a few key ideas. First, there's this concept of general mercy, where harm to a few can actually bring a benefit to many. Think of a single house being torn down to build a hospital for a whole community. Second, hardship can be a kind of spiritual wake-up call, something that shakes us up and makes us think about our connection to God. Third, some suffering is just the direct result of our own actions as a species. And finally, hardship can actually be a catalyst for progress, pushing us to invent and innovate to overcome challenges.
Okay, so this brings us to a really important shift in the conversation. We've been exploring the why of suffering, but now we're going to pivot to an even deeper question. What is our actual purpose for being here in the first place? And to answer that, the sources introduce this huge concept called al-amana, or the trust. Now, this isn't something physical. It's the unique gift given only to humanity, the combination of having an inner recognition of God and, this is the key part, the free will to choose. The choice to use our minds to rise above our basic instincts and build a real relationship with our Creator. The sources say this trust was so massive that the heavens and the earth actually refused it, but humanity, we accepted it.
So you see where this is going, right? If our entire purpose revolves around this freedom to choose, to uphold this trust, doesn't that pretty much frame our entire existence as one big test of that choice?
And that leads us, finally, to maybe the most personal, most difficult question of them all. Okay, fine. Life is a test. But did I ask for this? Did any of us actually choose to be here, to be tested like this?
Let's just put the question out there, nice and plain, because the sources do too. It feels fundamentally unfair, right? To be judged on a test you never even agreed to take in the first place. So how do these theological texts respond to that incredibly powerful objection?
Well, they offer two main lines of thought. The first one is based on the Creator's right. The idea here is that God, as the ultimate creator and owner of everything, has the right to test his creation. Now, a crucial part of this view is that God's perfect justice means the test is never beyond what a person can handle. The second answer is about a primordial choice. This refers to a moment before we were ever created in our physical bodies, when God gathered all of our souls and asked, "Am I not your Lord?" And all the souls said yes. We bear witness. And that moment is seen as our collective yes, our acceptance of the trust, and with it, the test that comes along for the ride.
So let's wrap this all up. It's time to zoom out, pull all of these threads together, and try to see the full picture.
Ultimately, everything we've talked about, the story of Musa and Khidr, the different purposes of hardship, the whole idea of the trust, it all points back to this one central theme. From our little ground-level view, life can look chaotic, unjust, and totally random. But the idea here is that from a wider divine perspective, all those pieces might actually fit into a wise, just, and purposeful plan, even if we can't possibly see how in the moment.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. What if we could actually shift our perspective? What if we started to see the challenges in our lives, not as random, meaningless tragedies, but as part of a purposeful test, maybe even one we chose to take on? How would that fundamentally change the way we face our struggles and ultimately the way we choose to live our lives?